what are the solutions? We assume you guys are in charge of the world, of the United States. We all have our pen and paper. Step by step, what do we need to do? What exactly could we individually do? What does the country need to do? What as specific as we can, what do we need to do to solve all these issues that we're discussing on the climate change issue, the natural resource shortage issue, et cetera?
All right, Dr. I'll take it about the climate change, and I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, let me point you to the forest that's right behind me. This is a photograph that I took in India. This forest, this used to be a coffee plantation 20 years ago. And a couple from New Jersey came to this coffee plantation, bought it, tore down the fences, and said, animals, you can come and live here and we are not going to hurt you. So they made sure that the animals feel safe. And guess what? The forest came back. So the animals came and dropped seeds that overwhelmed the coffee plantation. So the coffee bushes couldn't compete with the jackfruit trees and other things that grew. And eventually it became this forest again. And I went to this forest and it was so full of life that at night I could not even hear my sister talk. There was such a loud din of insects, loud buzz of insects around me as well. And so nature has a way of healing when we release land back to nature and step back with humility and say, I'm going to minimize my footprint and maximize what I give to nature. So what did this couple do? They actually made the animals feel safe. That required resources. They had to patrol the land and make sure that no human being, comes and hurts animals. There's no poaching going on. And so we can live in a way in which we give more than we take. And that is something that is being systematically shown can be done, and can be done in a way that everyone is actually much, much happier than they are in the current model. In the current model, we are all on a treadmill, some people are basically doing the same thing over and over, and they're trying to commit suicide because they're sick and tired of making iPhones for Apple. Okay, because it's the same damn thing you have to keep doing over and over and over. And so then why is Apple, deliberately making sure that you have to go and change the entire phone when the only thing that died was the battery? Why are we designing things in a way that make us go and buy more and more stuff, planned obsolescence and all this stuff? The entire mindset needs to change around, and the way we organize ourselves needs to change. And that's what these other communities are showing that we can do. So I'm going to say, look at the example of Sadhana forest in India, okay, which again is an experiment done by a couple from Israel who came to India, and they used the local knowledge to create, and brought their technology as well, because they knew how to grow things with minimal amount of water. So they used that to bring back the forest and create a system in which every loop is closed. Every loop is closed. Even human waste is not thrown out into a sewer system that goes and dumps it into the ocean. No, it is turned into fertilizer that's being used on that forest. So humans are living in a way they're on the internet as well. Okay, it's not like they have abandoned everything and gone back to the old ways of living. No, they're using the internet, they're connected to the whole world, but simultaneously they're taking care of each other, they're taking care of the animals, they're taking care of the planet. And so they are demonstrating how you can live in a way that you give more than you take. If every human being lives in a way that we give more than we take from the planet will thrive. Okay? So, and so then, you can even say, hey, up to a certain point, more humans is actually better, right? So you do need a lot of humans to come and clean up the mess that we have made, because we made a huge mess on this planet. Okay, we've got plastic everywhere. We've got huge piles of trash in these landfills. We've got nuclear waste. We've got problems to solve. We've got a lot of cleanup work to do. This is why there are 8 billion of us right now, because we have a lot of work to do. And then as we take care of each other, we automatically see a reduction in population happening. We see that in countries like France and Europe, where people feel secure. When people feel secure, they automatically have less kids. And so since France is stuck in the old model, they're now giving incentives to French women to have more children. Okay, because they're stuck in the old model where everything has to be about growth. Okay? So it's a rethinking of our entire system. It's a rethinking of our system so that we automatically contribute more than we take from the planet. And that will, and that to me is the transformation from the caterpillar to the butterfly. The caterpillar is all about taking, and funneling wealth to a few people at the top. The butterfly is about sipping nectar from the flowers, right? And in the process, pollinating the flowers and helping life regenerate. So it's a systemic transformation that's happening. And to me, it is like the Galilean moment, right? It's a double Galilean moment in human history.
Well, a couple quick things. First of all, I think there has to be, so getting back to your question, Steve, about what can we do? And the takeaway, I think, from this, and I think there has to be, everybody needs to get involved, and I think there has to be a top-down, bottom-up approach. I don't think we can leave anybody out. I think we need to have a grassroots effort, like Dr. Rao was talking about. Not everybody is going to have the land to do that with. There's going to be 70% of those people living globally by the year 2050. 70% are going to be urban dwellers. So we need to be educating them on how to use the resources most correctly that are out of sight, out of mind. Just like Stephen, you were alluding to earlier, it's they got to get outside their microcosm and bubble, and certainly by 2050, hopefully we'll have done that. And I think we could do that in the next year. But there has to be a gross, massive education from the bottom up, and there has to be an education and from the top down. And there has to be some type of policy change from what we've talked about earlier. I think, just even the method that most of our policies are following from the United Nations to just our own, deceitful policymakers here in the United States, but also those with platforms of influence. We have to not only make sure that they're fully educated, but then make sure they have some incentive outside of what I would consider more of a selfish objective, to use their money, their influence to move the critical mass forward. And I think by the time we do that and we approach both of them swiftly, it's a balancing act between revealing truth through education, reality, with the timelines we're on. And we've stressed that earlier. Population, by the way, if you look at the curve, it's already leveling out. I mean, it's 9.8 by 2050 and 11 billion predicted by 2100. So again, it's not the number of people, it's the footprint. One last thing I'd like to say about that, I think is very important, is because it's my goal, at least, not just to educate the public. It's my goal to get everybody on the same page that do have a platform. So I want to say one quick thing about the subtitle of GlenMerzer's book about the response to. I'm gonna probably take words out of his mouth, but and ideas, but basically what he's essentially saying there is that there are certain people in the public eye and with policymakers that have a platform of influence through their economic wealth or their following, their influence with their, the people who follow them. And all three of those that he mentioned, Al Gore, Bill Gates, and Paul Hawken, yeah, all three of them know very clearly what they're doing. So, for instance, and so I think we have to take people like that, deliver to them the message that we, drive it home a little bit better, and see if they can use their money in a better way. Because, like for instance, I'll just do this real quickly so everybody has a handle on this. And I think that if we had the public rise up, and someone maybe in their circle strike them in the right manner, we could have people like those three use their influence a little bit more productively. But for instance, Al Gore knows exactly what he's doing. He has a 400-acre farm that's used specifically for regenerative agriculture that breeds, raises, and slaughters 4 or 5 different types of animals. It's a conflict of interest for him to come out and say he's going to go completely plant-based from all of his agricultural systems, and he's going to put all of his money and influence from all the accolades he's had on him to do that. So he knows very well what he's doing. He doesn't want to lose his platform of influence, and he doesn't want to take away his entire farm operation, which he calls carbon farming, which we all know is he's doing the opposite. And same with Paul Hawken. Paul Hawken knows exactly what he's doing. He has one of the most influential climate programs that there is today with Project Drawdown. He has some of the most influential platforms, secondary platforms. He has more money coming into it, very sophisticated program, but it's all about climate change. It's not about all these other tipping points that we've talked about. And he has at the center point, silver pastoral, holistic management, regenerative agriculture as the future of food production. He only has one of his 82 on the table of 82 solutions. He only has one that states plant-based. And even then, it's not going completely plant-based. It's called plant-forward or plant-rich, which is the same as eating less meat, which I've discussed that pretty well in a few of my presentations. Is just not going to work. And so anyway, they know exactly what. And Bill Gates is the same way. Bill Gates actually has invested in the last 6 months. And if anybody can help with economics, it'd be Bill Gates. But in the last 6 months, he's invested heavily in cultured meat or laboratory meat. And he's stated on the record numerous times that he's heavily invested with Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation to production of livestock in sub-Saharan Africa, like in Ethiopia, for instance, that has 65 million cattle already, the largest in Africa, in a completely resource-exhausted country. And yet Bill and Melinda Gates are heavily invested for developing new breeds and funding small farmers there. And so he himself is, I believe these three are very typical of others with influence, that they're relatively intelligent, meaning, if they knew everything we know, I guess, maybe I'd hate to think they're continuing what they're doing. But yes, somebody has to get those type of people on board, because they have this large platform of influence and they know exactly what they're doing. It's a conflict for them to change their platform entirely right now to plant-based systems. So anyway, that's just a little blurb from me about it has to still be from the top down, bottom up, and get these with an influence to change.
But let me ask Richard exactly what you mean when you say that Paul Hawken knows what he's doing. Do you feel that he understands and has our assessment of the problem and still focuses the way he focuses, or are you suggesting he has some other motive for it? Could you explain what you mean?
Yeah, I sure can. Yeah, because I think that he, not singling him out necessarily as an individual, but using him as an example for others with same type of platform of influence, whether it's economic influence or whether it's those that follow him. But Paul Hawken has as I said, he has a very, very powerful climate change platform right now. It's heavily invested. Now, I spent quite a bit of time at a couple think tanks discussing with those that work with him on this project 7 years ago. And so he's heavily funded. He is driven by the platforms that he has created over the years. He maybe does not have exactly I don't know that he could discuss this in this much detail as we are today, but he's a very astute individual when it comes to climate change, at least. And not where Dr. Rao is, but he certainly knows the footprint. He knows the basics. And yet he knows he would lose his funding, likely. He would lose his platform of the amount of people that are following him. He certainly wouldn't have a New York Times best-selling book. If he came out and drew a line through and canceled his 20 12 other of the 82 solutions that are dealing specifically with animal agriculture. He canceled all those out and just put, and instead of plant rich or plant forward or eat less meat, he placed everyone needs to go vegan. Just like see Dr. Rao's notes by the year 2026 and see Dr. Oppenlander's notes by the end of this year. And he'd lose it. He would have no funding. And so he knows, yes, Glenn, he knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't have exactly the knowledge we may have, but he has, let's just say, and I'm very concerned about this, but I know we can change it around. I know we can. He just has to sit down with us sometime and maybe we can talk him into it, but and find a route for him. But he knows exactly what he's doing. And he has, let's end it by saying he has just quite a bit different sensitivity to what the planet needs and how to get there and the timelines we're on. And it doesn't balance out right now. It's a contradiction or conflict with all of his other interests in terms of his climate project.
Yeah.
Which is sad, you know,
Yeah.
obviously, because he has a
Yeah.
great deal of influence.